Hey, welcome back to Conversation with Michael and Jermaine. How are you doing today, Michael?
I'm excellent and getting better.
Good. Yes, it's been an interesting journey. I really loved our last conversation around friendship, and we're going to continue that conversation today, primarily because thank you for everyone who's listened and commented. It was a very well received episode, and it really started with a lot of me and my other friends just having conversation around what it means. So we're going to respond today to some of those feedback and insights. And so thank you so much for that. But I kind of wanted to kind of start it off by just doing a check in with my friend here, Michael. How has it been going for you since the last time we spoke? We haven't had a chance to speak as we normally do. How's it going for you?
It's been going well. For all things considered, in the course of life, of course, I mean there are you got your fits and your starts,
Yes.
and I've been having more good starts than having fits. Okay, so that I take that as a good sign. You know,
Yeah, same. I think I've been
I've
traveling.
been calm. My life has been calm.
Calm is great. Yeah, I've been traveling a lot, but I've also been finding I had a good conversation with a friend of mine another friend of mine right before we started today's podcast recording, and we were talking about some of the anxieties in the world right now, just like with travel and everything going on. And one of the things that she brought up in the conversation, I'd love to start here, is how do we lean into our support system with friends as we're navigating a lot of what's happening in the world, in our personal life, if anything. So I want to start the ball rolling with a conversation around, have you ever had to have a difficult conversation with what you're going through in your life with friends that are really close to you that you also know are navigating so many different things? And I think the question is kind of centered around not trying to overwhelm somebody else with what you're navigating. How do you find that space in friendship to be able to have difficult conversations around your own personal journey?
Mm. I want to try to understand that question a little bit more. Can you give me an example, Jay? Maybe I can.
Yeah, like so I was sharing up this morning about one of my friend and her own anxieties around just like travel and everything in the world right now because with flights and everything, and right now a lot what's going on politically in America. And I love to have these conversations in the space of this podcast because they're important and they're referring to what's happening in the world right now. And when I reached out to her, she goes, "Well, I didn't want to call you to tell you about some of the things that was going on because I know you're dealing with a lot and you're so busy, and I didn't want to burden you with like all the things I'm going through." And so I kind of want, and I shared very openly, like, no, as friends, that you can reach out to me and we can talk very openly about really difficult things that you might be processing. So I guess the question, to clarify the question, is do you find that whenever you are going through a really difficult thing that you self-isolate, or how do you lean into friendship to help you cushion some of these difficult parts in your life?
Okay. I can't think of anyone that I call friend that I don't think I can call them just about any time of day or night
Mm,
and feel it's an imposition, and and by extension, I operate the same way. My friends can call me any time of the day or night. Um, if it's something that's really pressing, something they consider urgent, something where they need me to be there, I'll be there. I never did understand folks who, when you call them, let's say at a certain hour of night, they pick up the phone and the first thing when they recognize your voice and they say, "What time it is?"
mm.
I didn't call to ask the time. I called because it's something important enough for me to think I can reach out to you. You know?
I think it goes back to that definition of what we talked about as friendship, and we kind of hit upon it last week about the love and how to practice love and how to share love. But I do find that sometimes I hold myself back, and I guess it goes back a little bit to how you perceive friendship and how you self navigate and self heal. And one of the reflections last week in one of the persons who wrote in and wrote a comment is, how do you maintain friendships when it comes to pushing through the difficult conversations with people? One of the comment was about having female friends who will stay in intimate relationships longer than they would in tough parts of our friendships. And so, how do you find? And I'm trying to like capitalize on the conversation last week and how to move forward with it. How do we find that we maintain the friendships in our lives. Let me ask a clearer question. Have you ever had to end a friendship? And what was the hardest thing in that for you?
Yes, I've had to end a friendship because, and this was someone who was having some serious mental issues, and they refused to get help. And in conversation, a couple of the conversations we've had, the person actually threatened. It was a veiled threat in there and it was directed to me.
Hmm.
And at that point, I didn't think that I was in a position to help them because they needed professional help, which was outside of my area of expertise. And they weren't in a position after I had actually tried to convey to them that they needed help. They still weren't doing anything about it,
Hmm.
you know. And so it had actually started to feel like a threat to my life. And I said, okay, fine. And I actually wrote and said, look, this is what I'm thinking, and I don't think I can be of help to you anymore, and therefore, if you don't mind, I think we'd just like to end the relationship. So I actually terminated the relationship. Just like, you know, um, yeah, I think you would if you were in a job and it was just not serving you anymore, or you know what I mean? You
Or with
just,
an intimate partner, right? Because we did talk a little bit about that. We kind of left it there last week, and I want to get back to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Where you also have an intimate partner that, if it's unhealthy, and I do believe that a health friendships are supposed to remain healthy to the point where if I now feel like it's destroying my dreams, my goals, who I am, how I show up, and
Mhm.
if I think I've ended friendships too, where I feel like I'm actually not being helpful to the friendship because I might be enabling a particular behavior by understanding, by being too understanding, by actually giving you space, like, okay, cool, yeah, I got you, I'm there. And I found that particular substance abuse thing has actually surfaced in my friendships where I've had to end, or mental shifts where I had to have ended friendships because the person may not have been in a place to be able to get to the next level of growth for themselves.
Precisely.
And it's now sometimes maybe sabotaging my own growth because it goes back to the point of wanting to grow with the people that you're with and the friendships that you're with, and allowing people to grow and allowing things to grow. I also wanted to invite us into the conversation around the intimacy of friendship. We had kind of stopped there last conversation around, can friendships be between people who are, I don't know, maybe have sexual attraction with each other, right? There's a big phrase that men and women can't be friends, or like people who are sexually attracted to each other can't be friends, and the friendship that crosses the line in sexual spaces. Do you find that that's something that you've had to navigate at some point in your life?
Hmm. Definitely, and on more than one occasion. Because I think when two persons, I think the initial attraction is usually a physical one. Okay, in any whether whether it goes friendship or what your intention is at the outset. Intention, that word intention. Um, there's an attraction there. You know what I mean? And I think honesty is comes into play here, where you decide that when you start a relationship, you need to decide what is the nature of this relationship going to be. Is it going to be a friendship? Is it going to be a situation more than friendship?
Or my generation is using a lot of situationship. Have you ever heard of
Situationship? Yes, I have.
situation? Situationship is very
Situationship.
common.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. Friends with benefits, etc. All of these terminologies that's applied in the 21st century. You have to decide in your head what is it going to be. And when you start, if you're going to be platonic friends, then if you're going to know, if you're thinking that your feelings, your emotions are getting to a place where you want it to be more than that, I think you have, it's important for you to be honest and say to the person, disclose your intentions, see where they are on that, give them a chance to be aware of it, instead of not saying anything and risk offending or losing that relationship.
I think that's actually really that phase, that part, because
Yeah.
I've been in those situations too,
Yeah.
where to say that things are shifting and to open the conversation can feel, I don't know, difficult or scary, or being afraid to actually lose what's there. And I want to go back a little bit to what you said about like defining what this relationship is. Is it important in the onset to have a conversation about what is this relationship? Because it's also like, let's see how things evolve kind of narrative that can be in the way. How important is it to establish the definition of what are we doing here
Well,
in friendship mode, in situationship mode? Because I find that a lot of them, they cross lines so easily,
yeah.
and learning how to have relationships is something I'm finding becoming a little bit rarer and rarer in how to actually maintain really healthy relationships.
Okay, so I don't know that I've ever said to anyone, hey, I want to be your friend. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we do that
So
when we're like
we
five, like,
meet
oh, you're my friend.
people, we engage in conversation, you kind of decide whether you want to continue or not continue. And if you continue, then, it's in that exchange and in that interaction that friendship is something that I think it evolves,
Hmm.
as opposed to say, well, yes, that's a friend right there, is my friend. No, you really can't know that at the outset. You see somebody, you like their personality, you find personality attractive, and so you pursue. And if it's mutual, that also will tell you something how they feel about you as well. And so there's this exchange between both of you. This energy exchange between both of you, and you see how it plays out. And slowly but surely, you start to engage and you disclose more and more of yourselves to each other, and then it grows over time, as opposed to, as I said, hey, you know, you wanted to be my friend and this is it. You know what I mean?
I think also what happens sometimes is people get offended if they are friend zoned. If we started out dating or trying to be more than friends and it just for whatever compatible reason doesn't happen, and go, okay, let's build a friendship. Do you think people can go from that intimate space of trying to be dating or anything and then going into friendship afterwards, or that's a very dangerous space to go?
No, I think, look, if both persons have the intention to go beyond the friend zone, then it's okay.
But I'm saying,
If one person has it and the other person doesn't, then that's a different thing.
yeah,
You know, sometimes also the other person may think, and I hear this all the time, that if we go beyond this, it might ruin what we have now. Yes, could that happen? Absolutely. But again, you both have to be willing to take that chance.
yeah,
So it's always a mutual thing. It's never really one-sided. I mean, one person might initiate the conversation, but at the end of that conversation, there has to be a mutual agreement as to whether we are going to take it beyond the friend zone or we're going to try and keep it there. And if one individual decides that, well, it's going to be a problem for me to keep it there because I can't keep my objectivity, then you have to kind of decide, what do you want to do about that? You see what I'm saying? You have a decision to make.
yeah.
Yeah. It's I you mentioned something earlier, Jay, about how do you raise a difficult conversation with a friend. It look, my my default position when it comes to raising difficult conversations is about being honest.
Hmm.
Just be honest. Okay? Don't try and you know uh, I'm not saying you're going to just to blurt out. It's a different thing when you are making a constructive criticism. Okay, that's one thing. So you try to be careful with your wording, so you don't want to offend your friend.
Yeah.
Because you respect their feelings and you want to really break it to them as gently as you possibly can, or in a way that's not going to offend them. Okay. But when it comes to a thing, a conversation about maybe changing the zone of a friendship, you just have to be honest right there. You know what I
Or
mean?
even one of the things I find though
You
is
know?
and I'm experiencing that, I guess, is the as you get older, as you start maturing and you start changing, you might need your friendship to show up in different ways. So spending more time, like initiating spending more time. And one of the things that I found in friendships that really help is spending the time with the people that you consider friends. And that time can look differently. It doesn't have to be as consistent that I see you every week or I see you every day or on the phone every week or every day. But the quality of time, you have to invest in those friendships. And I often find that people aren't spending the time. So, like, I found a few situations in my life where, for example, somebody start dating a new partner, and all of a sudden the friendship becomes almost not secondary to that, but it also, you just don't see this person again for like a while because now they're not invested in another person in a relationship. And those conversations can be interesting to have. How do you have those conversations to allow that person to grow, but also to maintain a balance in the friendship? Is something I'm learning how to navigate as well. Because also, if I'm dating somebody, how do I maintain my friendships that are important to me while also doing that duality of also growing in my own life and my own self? Because people will be growing at different rates and at different spaces, and allowing that to happen, I'm learning how to navigate those in friendships as well.
Okay. So great point. I don't think you, and when it comes to friendships, that friendships are very delicate things. And like any delicate and fragile thing, it should be handled with care. It really, that's how you demonstrate to someone you use the word friend to, you treat them special. Okay. You don't have, to say you don't have the time to be with. No one really, you don't really have time. No one has time. It's not something physical. You make the time to do the things that are important. So the word you used there a while ago, invest.
Yeah.
Friendships is something you invest time in. Okay, so yes, you might have you develop a love relationship, or I hear this a lot with people who get married, and so yeah, that consumes a lot of your time, and so therefore you don't really, you can't really devote as much time as you used to because your life is now, your time is now very limited, and so therefore what it means is that you now have to make the time. You're going to be seeing your friend less, and what I find also interesting with that is it's not the amount of time you spend with the individual. Okay, it's the quality of the time you spend with the individual that's important.
Yeah. Because I
You know,
really
so
believe you
so
have
yeah, so it's not length of the years.
this
It's
quality.
the quality of the time you put into those years.
I fully agree with that, because one of the things that I know is very, very important is you have to let the people in your life grow and actualize to become the next level of themselves, and be okay that they are changing, and now enjoy the new version of the person that has returned to you or returned to the friendships.
Yeah, that
Because
their life has changed.
that their life has changed, but
Yeah.
also in the life changing, I do believe that there's certain parts of yourself that, or definitions of yourself, that are now changing. I found that I've shifted some friendships or shifted relationships in my life where people want to hold you to the version of the friendship that served them or served the space that they first met.
For example,
For example, I can think immediately about the artist Jermaine, the version of Jermaine, the artist, who evolved a lot in my career, from being a dancer to like being a creative right now who's in charge of creating works. And we're leaning to certain friendships that will call on you to show up in the capacity that they remember you as a dancer or in that space. And you're like, well, I don't do that anymore. That's not necessarily what I want to work on or do. And they would often be like, yeah, but you're really good in that. Or that's really something that I know that you can do. And you're saying, I would say, actually, no, I am no longer that. I actually want to grow into this part of myself. Invite me in the room in this capacity now. Invite me in the room in the capacity that I want to grow in. And I found some of those shifted and shook up some of the relationships I had. And I had to go back and reevaluate the friendships or reevaluate the relationship, because I go, oh, you're not wanting me to grow.
so just to clarify, so I can understand. Are you talking about friendship, let's say when you were a dancer,
Mhm.
or are you talking about where, you're genuine friends and you're all dancers together, you evolve into something else?
Honestly, you just
Or are you talking about people who sometimes, people use the word friendship very loosely sometimes. So they say because you coalesce around some, so you're all dancers, so you gather around you. The central reason that holds you together there is dancing, not necessarily friendship. Okay,
yeah,
you share happy moments and you might share one or two things about each other. You know something about each other, but by the same token, it's not really that intimacy is not there. Okay,
yeah,
that intimacy and companionship is not there. It's just that you coalesce around dancing. So if you leave from dancing and you move on to something else, and they're still, in that realm of dancing, then you could say you left that relationship behind.
yeah. I think that's a really interesting and powerful point about how do you connect to these people? Where do you connect to them? And that word friendship is really definitely, and I'm keeping reminding myself daily, and I'm practicing how I use it. It is a gift that you have to give healthily.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Okay, yeah. It's not something that friendship for me is somewhat. It's a very there's intimacy in it.
yeah,
Okay, intimacy where I can share my vulnerabilities, my strengths, my desires, my aspirations, my joys, my successes, all of these things that I can, into me see, and they know all these things, and because they know that much about me, it renders me vulnerable, and they've earned that trust in me, so I can be vulnerable with them, and I know that they have my best interest at heart. I can think aloud in their presence, and I feel safe. I know that they will say the not so nice things into my face and the nice things behind me. You know what I mean? If somebody is saying something that is outside of their experience with me, they'll defend me. You know, one of the things that when some persons have come to me and said, well, so and so said this about you, okay, and I'm saying, well, okay, but what did you say? you know, because if it's my friend, I expect them to honestly say what it is they know and of their experience with me, as opposed to if this is something that's outside of what they're hearing. So these are all part and parcels and aspect of friendships that I really value. For me, it's a very serious thing. Acquaintances, and I use the words very deliberate because when I say friend, to me, it is someone whom, as I said, I can think aloud in their presence, and they know aspects of me that, uh, I don't share with just about any and every individual.
how do you practice that friendship in the other type when we hit upon it a little bit last conversation? How do you practice that friendship healthily with your intimate partner, with your siblings, with your kids, with people who have different definitions? How do you then find that practice? How do you do that um, with your parents? Can you have, how do you do that with your parents? How do you become friends? Can you become friends with your parents?
That's a question that is um, very debatable. My children, I have the kind of relationship with them whereby we operate on the basis of the basis is respect. Okay. They're allowed to say anything to me. They're allowed to challenge anything I say. They're allowed to disagree with anything I say, age appropriately, of course. You know what I mean? Because they're all adults now. But the whole idea is that as they grew, I fostered that relationship where they always knew that they could come to me, think aloud in my presence, and that I would be fair and honest with them. The one condition, the one condition that we do it with respect. So as long as respect is there, And that goes for friendship, it goes for any type of relationship. The respect is key. I even place a premium on respect, even more so than I do on the word love, because at the end of the day, I see people do some terrible things in the name of love. But I've never seen someone do something terrible to someone and said, I did it because I respect you. You know what I mean?
Fair. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that when it comes to, yeah, I'm very close with my children. I don't force them to tell me anything they don't want to tell me. If they are uncomfortable with telling me something, then it's okay. They don't have to tell me. If they want to share it, they know that I can absorb it and I'll be okay. And it started from when they were much younger. I mean, I'd say I try to create a safe space where they can come to me and talk to me with anything. Okay. And I need to just kind of stay calm. Sometimes you're going to hear things that's really going to kind of cause you some anxiety. But if they think that you're not able to handle it, then they're not going to tell you. And it's the same thing with friendship. If I think that you can handle a certain thing and you can, this is not something that, then I won't say to you out of respect.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you grow in terms of from whether your children or your partner or whoever it is, your friends, if I don't think you can handle, you know, if you're someone who's, let's say, you're religious, I may not be. Then there are certain conversations I may not want to have with you,
Yeah. And
out
that's
of
what's
respect for your
yeah, for the
beliefs.
friendship. And what it goes back to in a lot of ways is that friendships also can and should have boundaries within those spaces. Like a friendship doesn't negate the boundaries that exist. Like because you're my friend, that mean that there's no boundaries there that you have to also respect. I think that's a very important reminder that friendships actually require boundaries to be healthy.
Precisely. Excellent point. Because there has to be boundaries in everything. It can't be just a free for all. In war, you don't shoot the Red Cross lady. You know what I mean? Okay. So, I mean,
Hopefully.
yeah, well, but the whole idea is that there has to be boundaries, and boundaries will say how far you will go or not go. And so, again, the word, you respect those boundaries. So my children or my friends, they know their boundaries. I mean, we joke and but they know when the joke is just coming up against my boundary, and they know that, so they just kind of back. They, out of respect for me and I for them, they back off.
What about friendship with self? Is it important for you to almost, I mean, I guess it's a big question because you can't give what you don't have, right? And so how do you show that boundary and respect and care for self? I like to think is how you're able to give it to out. Is it important to almost find a friendship within?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think the first and greatest friendship, like the first and greatest love, is the one you develop with yourself. You have to know what that is. You have to know what a healthy love relationship is like, and be able to practice that with self before you're able to do that with anyone else. Because I think a lot of the misgivings about friendship stems from the fact that we don't really have a concept of what is this thing called love? What is this thing called respect? you know and so therefore, if you don't have a healthy concept of that, then you can't give that to anyone else, because it starts with you. You essentially are the one who, you teach people how to treat you. So
What makes
if
it difficult to become friends with yourself?
mm, to become friends with yourself,
Yeah.
well, becoming being a friend to yourself is understanding what concept do you have of the word friend. How do you define friendship? You see what I'm saying? Can you be honest with yourself? Can you trust yourself? You know,
Can you create boundaries
can
with
you
yourself and
rely
stick to it?
on yourself
Can you
to,
rely, can
yeah,
you say to yourself, I'm going to
yeah,
do this by the end of the month and follow
right. Can
through?
you can you rely on yourself to do the things you're asking other people, i.e., friends, to do?
Hmm.
Because people are, a lot of us tend to be very unfair. We want to ask people to do things for us and to us that we're not prepared to do for ourselves, nor do we have ever thought about it.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you're having a problem being honest and trustworthy with yourself, to ask someone else to do that for you and insist on that. And I think that a lot of the times when we keep insisting on this thing to happen, we need to ask ourselves, well, why are you asking someone to trust you or to behave a certain way toward you when you're not doing that for yourself?
I love that as a way to help wrap up this two-part episode. You kind of owe yourself everything, including friendship. And in order to give that to the world and give that to people you love, you really have to practice that with self.
It starts with you.
It starts with you.
The greatest friend you'll ever have, it starts with you. Okay, so be that friend to yourself, and once you keep revising and renewing and updating those those ideas, and the better you become, the better friend you will be to someone else.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing with us in our first two-part episode. This was a new venture for our friendship as well as this podcast. And thank you all for jumping on, liking, subscribing, and commenting. Please keep it moving forward.
Yes.
We look forward to our next conversation next time around we meet.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I really do appreciate those persons who have taken the time to comment. And we would love to hear from you, because one of the things that I think we want to make very clear is that this is just an open conversation that we're having with ourselves. We're not claiming to be any authorities on any subject we talk about. And you don't have to be an authority to discuss friendship or any other topic for that matter.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining again, Conversation with Michael and Jermaine. See you next time.